Well, let's start by defining the disorder. Anti-personality disorder, or some people like to call it NHS. What is it?
SPD.
NHS?
Oh,
Oh no, NPD.
SPD, or yeah, some people still call it psychopathy or sociopathy.
Yeah, that's the terms I use for it, psychopathy and sociopathy, because I truly believe that they're very different things. I think psychopathy has a level of narcissistic personality disorder associated with it.
I actually agree
And
because antisocial, it's more like antisocial is referring to antisocial behavior, which is sociopaths are prone to it, but it's still I still will separate that.
yeah, so what I have is I have sociopathy, which is antisocial personality disorder, and that generally is um, phrased as a disorder that affects how you think or perceive or feel in relation to others. And
Yeah.
it's particularly challenging. It can be characterized by impulsive, irresponsible, or criminal behavior occasionally. A lot of people like to focus on that last one, criminal behavior.
Yeah, it's
And
not all about that, right?
and the reason why is because people with it oftentimes don't talk about it. And so the only times we really consider it is in the cases of serial killers or people who have committed criminal activity in relation to the disorder. And so most of the time, and that's just a small percentage of people who have it, most of the time it really doesn't affect us in that manner. And if it does, it's never affecting anybody else because we hide it really well.
Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah, so um, we typically can be manipulative, deceitful, or reckless. A lot of times we don't care for other people's feelings. It's not because we choose not to, right?
Yeah,
You know, it's just
don't.
because we can't. That's not built into us.
It's not like you're wired for that. I will say it's just if you're not able to do something, like your brain is not capable of something. It's not like I choose not to. Uh,
Exactly.
it's what I think people don't understand very well.
Yeah, it's a really misunderstood thing. And for instance, I don't feel guilt. I don't feel guilty about anything I've done. I almost never feel guilt. I haven't in the past felt a level of remorse, but I associate that more with shame, which is something I do feel. I do feel shame occasionally about things or
Uh,
admitting to things that I've done, which
but
I
it's
have done
shame is
rough
self-centered
things.
feelings. It's self-centered feeling. It's different from guilt and remorse, which is like considered to be for another person.
Yeah, exactly. I guess empathy.
Empathy is the
Yeah,
root of it, I think, because reduced empathy, it's why you can't feel those things, right?
yeah. I don't really feel empathy for other people. I don't really care what happens to other people because, well, that's the thing. If there is no reason why, I just don't. Which, if from my perspective, I would imagine that everybody feels that same way. But that just is not how it is, I suppose.
I thought that everybody thought like me for a long time. So it's like mentality is like kill or be killed, or survival mode.
Yeah. I mean, from my perspective, and probably yours too, but I don't know that, it's the idea that we've been given this life, and so we should live it how we want to. But then again, people with um, like a lot of other types of personality disorders, antisocial personality disorder, which I like to refer to it as sociopathy, is
Yeah, like
actually a spectrum
sociopathy,
disorder.
like a spectrum of you can be anywhere on spectrum. Some people even I read or whatever I meet a lot of people can feel guilt to some degree at some points. Like um, I actually read a I don't know if I read or heard that, I mix it up. But definitely I didn't really hear that remorse is a thing, which I don't feel remorse for sure. That's what I can say. But I get confused even about some feelings like that, especially like feelings that are similar to each other. So,
Yeah, so that's
so yeah,
when I mentioned before that I feel a certain level of remorse. It's actually I would associate it more with the feeling of shame rather than remorse.
but
I'm
it's
remorseful
like
because it affects me.
it affects you. Yeah, that 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 is how I see that. Yeah.
Well, what causes ASPD in people, which from here on I'm going to refer to it as sociopathy. What causes sociopathy? Uh, there can be a number of factors. For the most part, it's genetic.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about nature and nurture in psychological science. What caused something? Was it nature by genetic or was it nurture by effect?
Yeah.
Sociopathy, psychopathy is almost always a mix of both.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
it can happen genetically without the nurture part of it. You don't have to experience abuse for it to kick in. But it cannot happen without a genetic link to it
Predisposition to
somewhere
it.
in the family.
Yeah, my whole family is basically on the spectrum somewhere, and specifically my father is very like SPD and PD kind of thing, like very similar to me. So it's I think that I got that from him.
Yeah, I got it from my grandmother on my mother's side, and my grandfather on my father's side. My grandfather on my father's side actually was a serial killer, and he
I
died in an Ohio State prison about 22 or 23 years ago. See,
I think
25,
that
26, 27 years ago.
that killing is coming with associated with maybe with some trauma with sociopathy, because and low functioning is a key factor as well. Like or IQ can be the factor as well, or something like that's what I think it is when it comes to those who commit actually the very such a crimes or such things.
Yeah, well, it comes from the fact that we're oftentimes impulsive, but I think there's something more to that. Because with me,
Yeah,
it's almost like we'll call it. I like to call it an itch, or it's almost like an addiction, or
it's
like the
addiction.
urge to
It's like
drink water or eat food.
you can get
And
like
because, oh, go
high.
ahead. Sorry.
You can like get high out of stuff. I'll just mention if we talk about animals or in the past, which happened to me, and even in like childhood or whatever, it just gets you a little of like high feeling, and you kind of want more, and it's how it goes out of hand sometimes. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, it really does. And the more you do it, the worse it gets. But if you don't do it, it still never really goes away.
No,
I've never really found a good way to cope
we just
that's
don't go
actually
away.
healthy.
We just don't go away. It's just you find a way. If you want to high function, you just find a way to redirect some of the urges to some other socially more acceptable ways.
Yeah, exactly. Like I recently had an arrangement agreement with my neighbor that was similar to BDSM in nature,
Ah, yeah.
and I won't get into all the details for the sake of you know
Yeah, since you're
for my own
apart.
sake, but it was a consensual arrangement that was beneficial for me in coping.
Yeah, I definitely use BDSM to cope with it. So it is good strategy to be honest.
Yeah, the important part is that is avoiding acting on urges that cause permanent changes. I like to think that life is the most precious and lottery that anything has ever won. On the surface of our Earth's crust, which is less than 1% of the whole Earth, in an entire infinite dead universe, we are the only things that exist like us. And on levels of sapience, sentience, and consciousness, things that are sapient should not be permanently taken away. Things that are sentient should be considered when being damaged, and anything that's conscious is all life is conscious, except for single cellular things and I guess fungus and plants and stuff, but that's arguable.
Well, I found out something like talking about psychopathy and sociopathy. That like somebody mentioned that the main difference is like in consciousness, that psychopaths don't have any consciousness, which sociopaths can have. And I was like, what's consciousness? And I was really asking that what's consciousness, like to explain it to me, like what it refers to.
Yeah, so conscious life is anything that has instinctual obligations, whether that be to eat, survive, find shelter from the cold, whereas sentience is anything that feels. You know, our dogs, our cats, they feel. They feel happy when you pet them, they feel sad when they're being yelled at. Whereas
Yeah.
sapience is the understanding and repercussions of life and death and the will to benefit ourselves through methods that other forms of life can't necessarily understand or comprehend. So sapience is the highest form of life, humans, orcas, dolphins, whereas sentience is things like cats and dogs, and consciousness would be things like a mouse or a hamster.
Like like consciousness in what? How you mean psychopaths don't have a consciousness? Um, like
Oh, a conscience.
uh,
So there's consciousness and then there's a conscience.
okay, must be that my English could be there a real problem. Sorry, it's get really noisy when I apparently speak.
That's okay.
I'm not sure.
Um, English is one of the hardest languages, and it's got a lot of nonsense in it.
Yeah,
But
mostly
a
I understand.
conscience
But yeah,
is that voice in the back of your head that tells you, we should have empathy for this person, they're feeling bad. Or we should have remorse for what we've done. It wasn't a good thing to do, even if it didn't hurt anyone.
hmm but yeah, they say that sociopaths like some say well that that's one behavior considering, but I'm not really sure that's not the only factor. But okay, so they say they can have this selective empathy, like which in certain situations for certain people selective circle, which is true. I have selective circle of people, and like that's few of people through all my life, and like that I have different like conduct code or moral code with, but selective empathy or that's definitely should mention that there are different kind of empathy, like like cognitive empathy is what we can do because it's use your brain, like you use your brain, you don't use your emotions, so it's like it's basically like empathy, just without feeling what other people is feeling.
Yeah, so from a clinical standpoint, it wouldn't be fair to say that psychopaths and sociopaths don't have a conscience. However, from a practical standpoint and from an insider perspective, I would agree with that. We do not have a conscience. That being said,
Someone,
however, we cannot, it's not that are completely incapable of developing emotional attachments. We can do it. It can happen. We don't get to choose who it happens with. But there
yeah,
are certain
but
people in our
yeah.
lives that we can make emotional bonds with.
Yeah, that's definite. Like that selectiveness, it's like a thing. Like it exists with some people, and you can get some level of empathy with them. But I don't think that's like the emotional empathy. Like what I get is cognitive empathy, and what I call mirrored empathy. Like if that person is talking about something, I'm trying to think about situation that is similar that happened to me, so I'm trying to match those feelings, like kinda, so like to feel them, so I kinda match the feeling what other person is feeling, but it's not the real thing, it's just like very close to it, right?
Yeah, so putting yourself in another person's shoes is something I like to call social transitional introspection.
This is a
So we
hard
think
one.
socially and we transition ourselves into that person's shoes and think introspectively. which means we look into how we would feel in that person's position.
But it's all how we will feel, but it's still not how the other person is feeling. We have no idea of that. But I think it's still, I still don't see how I could fully empathize with somebody. I just see how partially I can do that on some level.
Yeah, you're exactly correct.
Yeah.
And that's largely what I do for my couple people who I actually, have a connection with, such as my sister or my father,
Yeah.
or I have a buddy named Ryan, and I consider him to be my brother.
Yeah, there are like, for me there are like three people in my selective circle for now, and like it's all friends though. It's just like, and one I consider my brother. It's well, not my brother, but I consider him like that, and that's my selective circle. But it's just pretty much about that circle, and that's it. For others,
Yeah,
it's
and
like
it
I
almost
don't
makes
feel it.
me personally want to cut these people off because I largely view them as just another weakness of mine.
Uh, well, weaknesses, like we are very focused on weaknesses. Apparently, not liking the weaknesses or such a stuff. Yeah, that I can see in many. It's something. Well, jump in if I lose the fucking concentration. It happens. I'm multitasking sometimes.
But it's okay.
Uh, so I don't even know what we were talking about.
Yeah, I lose focus a lot too. I just recently was diagnosed with dementia, or early dementia,
Wow,
so from an accident with spray chemicals.
how old are you then?
I'm 25,
That's early.
and I've got the paperwork and everything. Not a lot of people really believe it, but what happened was it was situational. So it's a little off topic, but herbicides and spray chemicals, they use those all over in America to kill noxious weeds that like to take over people's land and spread
Ah,
wildly.
damn it, America.
Yeah, and I ate some mushrooms that were sprayed with some of those, and it put me in a coma for a while, and I woke up and it left quite a neurological footprint. Among those is dementia.
Oh, well, that's interesting. The topic. That's interesting. Wow,
It is kind of interesting.
I'm just kind of trying here to be um, empathetic. Though, don't worry if I'm failing. Uh,
Oh,
it's
that's okay.
it's like I'm. It's like forgetting stuff or people, as a, right?
Yep, it's a degenerative brain issue, so I forget things. My abilities to read and write are declining. My vernacular is slipping
It means you're
away.
gonna die faster.
What's that?
It means you're gonna die faster.
Yeah, I have a prognosis of 3 to 10 years left.
That's not kind of bad thing if you look from some perspective.
No, it's not the worst thing. There are definitely worse things out there that can happen. It's just something that happens. I shouldn't have been. There was a lot of ways I could have avoided it, and it was
Why the
I
fuck
did
you
it to
eat
myself,
mushrooms
and so I've
then?
got to deal with the repercussions.
Why the fuck you eat mushrooms?
Oh, the usual reasons.
Like the mushrooms or the mushrooms?
Oh, they were like mushrooms. They were blue ringers was the species of mushroom that I was eating.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Wow.
and they were picked within city limits. The county that I live in sprayed them with. Nobody's 100% certain. The doctors aren't sure because it's already worn out of my system, but we think that it was either paraquat, the chemical spray, or 2,4-D, the chemical spray.
I'd say shit happens, but yeah, it shit happens. That's about that.
Yep, that's a little off topic though.
Yeah.
Um, when it comes to antisocial personality disorder, many relationships and friendships are treated very transactionally. So, what do I get in return for putting forward however much effort is kind of how it is. Although it's seen a little bit different by people like me or you. But on paper, that's pretty effective description.
Um, yeah, I mean, what I'd like to mention is like, well, I've seen myself like in past relationships when I wasn't even aware of the things, or when I wasn't even diagnosed. Was I abusive? Is the question that goes, and I definitely was, but I was just like even not aware that it was abuse, because if I couldn't feel the exact like empathy, I couldn't really measure what's going on inside of that person, and I definitely didn't until they left and like basically uh, do something drastic to like make me question what did they really felt death threatened or something. I didn't really see that as like too bad or something. That's nothing too bad, you know.
Yeah. And as far as disorders are concerned, I like to use that term really loosely because I think from an evolutionary standpoint, it's more useful than it is not useful. Um,
Well,
because it's made it so that I can basically get any job that I want. I'm able to manipulate people however I want to, and it's kind of like that for all of us. It's just a level of skill that determines the level we can operate at. So
if you
I operate with a high
if
level
you
of vernacular and literate skills,
yeah, if you
and so
put it like
oh, sorry, go ahead.
that's sorry for interrupting you, but that's like that's like a high functioning. If you're putting your skills like for a job or something like that, it's pretty productive way of um, doing that. If you do that in relationships, it's kind of like to consider to what I do try. It's like to correct some of the behaviors, so it's more high functioning, you know, and my impulses there are just thrown in other places where it's not so detrimental for people.
Yeah, well, a good example I have for that is my buddy I mentioned before. We'll say he's my brother. Um, he is very low functioning in a lot of different ways professionally, and it's as a result of um, different mental conditions he has. But
Mm-hmm.
I use these abilities to push him in the right direction. So
Good.
in doing so, I have managed to get him to a point where he has $2,000 in a savings account, and he's got all of his bills paid, and he's got housing and internet and
Damn, I'll need you
all
as
of
my
that.
manager.
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
I said I'll need you as my manager or something. Um, I'm not quite functional when it comes to the job currently.
Yeah, a lot of times therapists like to use democratic therapy, which is basically what we just spoke on is democratically speaking, what is the best and most useful way to use this in our advantage to make things better rather than worse.
Oh God, I used the wrong kind of therapy, and I actually have few this I like it to call it the conditions. So it's like mixing up with all of this. So I kind of try to focus really on the subject of only it, but I think that's kind of preventing me from directing my to what I am truly capable of, and or I can't be bothered sometimes. You know, you get that. Do you ever get like very determined about something, and in the middle of it you're just like kind of I'm bored, I'm out of it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, it can be quite the issue. It can also be
mm-hmm.
very useful, but it can be quite the issue.
Yeah, it can be because you get bored, or like you can get bored with things very very easily.
Absolutely. As far as medicine is concerned, there's little evidence to support the use of medicine helps. There are certain
Mm.
SSRIs, which is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, basically antidepressants
SSRIs,
that can
yeah.
sometimes improve on anger and general personality issues or
Zoloft
symptoms.
or sertraline was prescribed to me, but I found out that stimulants pretty much work because stimulants are used for ADHD, but I found out not just when it comes to me, but ask other people with SPD, and they said the same thing, it managing their symptoms.
Yeah, I take Vyvanse, which is a stimulant, but I was also on citalopram, also known as generic for sertraline.
Yeah, that
Uh,
I'm going
I
for
recently.
right now.
Oh, sorry.
I'm going like through seventh time for through a diagnostic shit because I was kicked out because of my age from my doctor stop and just put me off very high dosage of Concerta and to zero of it like and I changed doctor and she said yeah I can see like she immediately put that diagnosis of ADHD combined with conduct disorder or something but she said I still have to do like a process of diagnosis and to give you medicine and such.
Yeah, oh, that's an important topic. Diagnosis. Now, a lot of people wonder whether or not we should get diagnosed. Is it worth it? Now, my personal answer to that is no, unless you have
I definitely accidentally go that.
unless you have some concerns for the safety of other people or yourself. Diagnosis is never usually a good idea, and you don't have to
No.
get diagnosed to tell people about this or to tell therapists or mental health
Oh,
professionals about
I'm
it.
getting diagnosed for ADHD because that's where I can get my stimulants. That's my goal. I have just my goals with this therapy, with this psychiatrist actually, because medication don't really affect me too much. But I found out that this one specifically do something.
Yeah. The stimulant really helps me too, actually, as a matter of fact.
Which one
Um,
you said you use?
I use Vyvanse or
Vyvanse,
lisdexamfetamine.
Vyvanse. I was prescribed that with Ritalin, and the only problem is in my country that's not registered, and I had to trip to Spain to get them. And but I was pretty good on both Ritalin, and I was actually good on Ritalin as well. It's just that my country only recognized Concerta as like legitimate treatment for it but I found out other alternative option which is not very strong stimulant but it's still like something until I get my fucking diagnosis again.
Yeah, I just recently attained a diagnosis for ADHD myself, and so
Oh
what I
yeah,
want them to give
just
is
forgot to
Adderall, but they refuse to
yeah
give me
yeah
Adderall.
yeah it's amphetamine based but to be honest what you have I think is pretty good uh, itself so um, I mean, at least you can get it. The only shit we get here is concert, I tell you. But what I forgot, yeah, should I get the SPD diagnosis? I was definitely against it, especially this is local doctor, and I don't need that. I'm on probation. I was actually mentioned in my script these few times that I gone strong tendencies to personality disorder, and I was like, oh damn it, let's go, let's just lower that somehow.
Um,
I actually don't want to get diagnosed with it.
yeah, ASPD diagnoses I don't think are worth it. ADHD is necessary to maintain
Yeah,
medication management, but there's no medication they can give you for ASPD.
no.
I am diagnosed officially with it, and every time there's a murder or someone goes missing, they always come and talk to me.
I
The
mean,
cops come and talk to
I'm
me.
diagnosed accidentally, but But with this doctor, I always change doctors. I really avoid it, especially on probation. It really not go like to my gain at all. So definitely just because of medication.
Yeah, I'm also myself on probation, but I'm absconding from the law, which means
I
absconding means that
dodged
I'm
this.
avoiding the law. I moved away.
I dodged this like 3 weeks now, and I'm supposed to go well tomorrow or the next day or wow fuck, you know.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, and the law is terrible. I don't know how it is down there in Serbia, but here in America, it's a nightmare, and our police are constantly shooting and killing people. And once you're in the system, it costs thousands and thousands of dollars to get out of it.
I heard about your prisons, mate. I think this. I was in central prison, and I got better treatment than this. I don't know, like you guys. I heard you can't even smoke there, and I was like, what the fuck?
The best part about the legal system here in America is our constitutional rights. So we have a certain set of rights that can't be broken. If they're broken, we can file lawsuits and get giant amounts of money for it. And they're supposed to protect us, but a lot of times they're broken. And because lawyers cost so much and the legal system is so hard to navigate, even if our constitutional rights are violated, we still basically can't do anything without being rich.
Ah, yeah. Mm. Where you stated actually? If you
What's
want to
that?
say, if you want to say where you stated, no, where you live, in which state?
One more time. I didn't quite catch
In
that.
which, sorry, I talked too fast. In which state you live, if you want to say?
Oh, in which state do I live? I'm
Yeah.
currently residing in Washington State.
Ah, yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
better than
So,
Texas, I guess.
yeah, Texas is a nightmare.
Yeah,
Texas
I heard
has
of it.
put more innocent people to death than anywhere else in the entire
I
country
heard of it.
combined.
I heard of it. America is just a. I won't even comment that.
Yeah. Well, America's not the best. It's not the worst, but it's definitely not the best.
Yeah, I mean, all countries get the goods and the bad. Um, I kind of like it here. It's not like dangerous place actually. Not too much. Uh, uh, well, what we got here was like, well, if you heard, we actually were recently just on fucking all news because this kid uh, shoot like I think he killed 9 kids. He was massive killer, first massive killer that is his age, I think, elementary school still, or how we call it, middle school.
Yeah, that happens all the time here. It's just not reported on. And America also has a way of teaching propaganda to their kids. So I was raised knowing that we call them third world countries here, places like Serbia and all that,
Yeah, I
as
know,
if
third world
they're not
country,
as
basically.
good.
Yeah, I know.
And we're taught that it's more dangerous and that your legal rights aren't as good and all this other nonsense. But it's not. It's just not true. Anywhere that follows
No.
communist or socialist rhetoric, we call them we call them regimes. We have words for other governments that are not inherently bad, but paint a picture of negativity. And
I
we
don't know,
really,
like
people in America really are doing bad.
I don't think that like a place I live, it's just hard to get money. That part is like what I think it's bad. That's why I'm working actually with you guys there in America.
Yeah.
But that is the best option for us because that standard is different and we definitely get more like we get more than to spend because of standard like it's simple answer, but I like it better here. I don't think definitely it's not dangerous or violent. It's this is the first school shooting I actually heard of in so long here.
Well, we have about one school shooting every 2 months here in this
Yeah,
country, and
yeah,
sometimes more.
yeah,
And we
fair.
also have racially motivated shootings, and we have mass shootings all over the place. And the police, every single day, about every 17 minutes, a person is shot and killed by the police in America.
Yeah, corruption and shit. I
And it's
mean,
just, it's incredible.
but you can, from my experience, I don't know if I'm just very manipulative or I dodged law too many times or police, but especially with my looking, like I have baby face, I just go with I'm underage and my acting skills go wild, and they let me go with some not too bad stuff, but uh, yeah, I was still in prison. I mean, for something that I won't mention, it's completely. I defended myself in court and just told everyone, even my defender, to shut up. So I got myself out immediately. And
Yeah.
yeah, immediately. It was just right. The decision was immediate, and that's usually doesn't happen. Usually, you have to wait some time, or you get released. But I was immediately released, and I was cool. That was good.
Well, in most more extreme legal cases, you really are stuck in jail here. But in
Oh, it
almost
have
every other
happened.
legal case, for almost every other law you can break, as long as you're rich enough, you can get off with no consequences.
Like I know my friend is like stuck there for 4 years because he messed with mafias and such a stuff. They keep him there for like oh god, it's just a very very damn situation. They don't have
Yeah.
money. They don't have money, and they mess with the guys who are just too rich to, and it's corruption.
It's just a nightmare. And I don't know how politics are set up over where you're at, or I really don't know anything about political situations in almost any other country, but over
I
here,
don't even
everything is split up into a right side and a left side.
yeah,
And
left
all
is
of the
right.
beliefs are set in stone. So we can't just agree on anything. There has to be either the left side or the right side.
I'm liberal. I don't care.
Yeah, it's kind of a pain in the ass.
I don't actually bother with politics. I don't even listen to that bullshit. I think it's a waste of time.
Yeah, me too, for the most part.
It's just for if I get interested, like definitely I will have a word on it, but I think it's still a waste of a time.
I think I'd have to agree with you there. So, on the main topic though, people often ask how common antisocial personality disorder is, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's 1 to 4% of adults in the U.S., and men are more susceptible to it than women for some reason.
I don't know if statistics usually say a lot of stuff. Well, for because I have autism, they stated that 4 times it happens more in boys, though it was misunderstood, like it wasn't truth, because girls just mask better, and it was actually equal at the end. That's what I found out, but I don't know why it happens more with male. To be honest, I think what NPD is also considered it's more male thing.
Yeah, I think people consider it a little too much sometimes when they're taking into account these kind of things.
I met a lot of actually females that I see females a lot of it ASPD, and I'm like pretty sure that it happens like more often, but it's just I think they measure by how many of them are actually diagnosed. And imagine how much of them are not, because they don't go to doctor. They don't actually think there's something wrong with them. I didn't went for that to seek even therapy. I didn't went because of that, or NPD or ASPD, but I didn't went for it. It was accident. I got diagnosed for it. I went for other issues.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to what I was saying almost at the beginning of this, is that from my perspective, I feel like everybody should feel this way. It just seems like normal, logical thinking and behavior. I
Yeah.
didn't notice it until either 14 or 15, and then me and my sister were just talking about some things, and then she started to catch on to the idea that I didn't exactly feel the same as her. And a lot of people don't notice ever.
Yeah, yeah, it can. I mean, I'm little even later with stuff like that. I mean, I knew, but never really knew. Like, come to your consciousness or something like that, that you really understand that is what I was. Now I have a friend who actually is like the opposite. She's empath. She's opposite. Her mindset is so different when we speak, because we speak, her boyfriend is on spectrum, and when we speak, she's asking me for advices because I can give it because of my mindset. And when I heard that how she thinks and what she falls for, I'm just like, how can you be so naive, or how really surprised each time, and I'm starting to think about it, and I'm like, damn it, people really think differently. Like, is that
Oh,
normies or
yeah.
whatever? It's just different mindset.
Absolutely. I have a friend like that too. I guess an acquaintance, I should say. And she actually is an empath.
Yeah,
And so she feels much more deeply the emotions of others and people around her, sometimes without even being glued onto it. And
yeah, this one too, and she's so concentrated on her feelings and how he will feel like, and I'm like, come from, like, go from your head, stop that feelings, like block your feelings, like, or something, just put them away, or whatever, detach from them. And if she can do it, and just think about it. It's what I just like it. They feel too much, and they just join with that they go from emotion instead from logical.
yeah, and it's funny because it just affects them so poorly. For her, a lot of my emotional, or a lot of my moral rhetoric that I adopt comes from her. And a lot of the times she always says things like, "Oh, I wish I was just like you, Bailey," or "I wish I was just like you, Gizmo," and I wish that I didn't have to feel so much. And I have to agree with her. I have to agree with her because
Must be
her
hell then.
emotions are only hurting her. They're not helping her.
Yeah, well, there must be some ways to stop that shit, right?
Yeah, you'd think so, but to this day I haven't found any.
It's like, I somebody asked if you would love to feel like that more emotions, like, oh well, it sounds like hell. I
Yeah.
I do actually sometimes curious about feelings, like, because when I'm like not having a journal, and I'd rather feel the feelings that I don't have much than like feeling nothing, to be honest. Sometimes it gets to that point. Um, so I was trying to make myself a lot of times sad, or either ways, by watching stuff or hearing stuff that are sad, and I'm like nothing. but but or it gets a little sad. It just doesn't get the same way, or like my mother, that she can't even look at a lot of things I'm showing her, like I'm trying to show her, but she can't even look at them.
Yeah, I get that a lot too. And I kind of understand emotions a little bit because when I came down with this with sociopathy, I don't remember the exact moment, but I do remember before and I remember after, and the change is so distinct that I can tell that there was a change. It was sometime before 4 years old, and sometime after that.
Oh
I
yeah,
think either
definitely.
6 or 7, maybe.
Oh, what I remember first, it's a very young age with me. It's something that happened to me. It's like I was as young as I can remember. So I'd say 3 years old, and I was thinking about if my mother could get another child, baby, like I could hurt it, and nobody will know because yeah, babies cry all the time, and it was pretty manipulative and pretty like sadistic for somebody who is that young, you know. And that's the first time I think that something happened, but after that it was something that happened, but definitely at age of 8 I think that mindset gone completely other ways.
Yeah, I think it was either 5 or 6 for me, and I remember just very vaguely because it was so many years ago, over 2 decades. I remember being really happy and really sad, and when I did something bad, I'd feel really bad about it. Or like if I told a lie, I'd feel bad. And then at some point, and it wasn't like an event. It might have been gradual, or it might have been like on at a moment's notice. At some point, that changed, and I no longer really cared about anyone except for myself, and I guess my father too. But only to a certain extent, not over my own well-being.
Like to your comfort zone, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. But I do remember before very vaguely, and I definitely know what it's like after. And I think it's a benefit. As long as you can control it and maintain it, remain high functioning, I think it's a benefit.
But when it comes to emotions, I will tell like it's still misconception that you don't feel emotions because you do feel emotions. It's what I think certain emotions are reduced, and certain emotions can be even more intense. Like anger can be a very intense emotion, um, state of anger. It's like a rush of anger, it's rage and adrenaline gets over you, and you just get oh damn it, I get so fucking brave that it can be very reckless.
Yeah, I get the same thing. I think for me, anger is the strongest emotion that I have.
Yeah, yeah, it's same.
Or maybe depression. I get that really bad too.
It can happen. It's just like depression as well, but it's getting to a low point or something, or or just and depression is not an emotion though. It's more like mood stuff, and or like anxiety is different from fear because anxiety is actually separate disorder. It's just anxiety is just different thing, and it's also said that like with psychopaths like it's less likely to be present, but they say that's actually double more likely to be present with antisocial. So I'm not sure. Maybe with sociopaths is more likely to be present as well, but that's different from feeling fear. I definitely in dangerous situations feel more like adrenaline or something like that or nothing, but I won't feel or reduced feeling of fear definitely.
Yeah, I don't feel a lot of fear. And when I put it in comparison to anger, anger definitely is my strongest emotion. And
Yeah,
it is intense. It
it's
is
like rage,
uncontrollable.
more like
It,
rage.
yeah, it's not even something that can easily be alliterated upon, I reckon. I don't
Yeah.
know how to put it into words.
Yeah, when I get into that, it can be mixed with adrenaline, and I told you it can last in that state. I'm just not I'm detached from emotional thinking process. I think, and in that state, I'm just like different and very different. I mean, I can, I mean, different how I can't really. plan. I'm in impulsive state, and I remember being robbed with my ex was, and with a gun on face, and and when I heard of it, I just went like my hands were, I had nothing on me. I would scream like streets, go on me, go get on me, like if you can, if you dare, and it was like a dangerous situation in which I didn't really feel anything but that I will bury him with my hands, like that's all.
Absolutely. And it's not like something, it's just what you, yeah, see, it's hard to put into words, but it's just what you were supposed to do at that time. Like, it's exactly what you were going to do no matter what.
Yeah, it's
And
like
it wasn't something you could
you
think better
can't,
of.
you don't have an option of like, if we talk about kill or be killed mentality, you're definitely gonna go for a kill, not for and I like that because it gets you out of situations. um, I actually felt so much into my body that I could actually I could get I actually could do anything at that moment, to be honest.
I know
As
I'm dealing with a customer support agency right now, and they've been giving me a hard time, and it's so frustrating that there's nothing I can do in retaliation against them because they're based in the Philippines, the call
yeah.
center, and I want nothing more than to just give it back to them, but I can't, and that's currently my best example. I guess except for one time I had an ex, and it gets a little scary sometimes because that uncontrollable rage, it happens with me also, but sometimes I take it really slowly and wait, and I'm a little opportunistic with it. And so, like, I'll wait until the best opportunity and just pretend to be okay
Oh,
until I
that
can.
definitely happens. Definitely happens to me too. Sometimes it's very impulsive, and I get right to the point like that. But sometimes I'm just like I shut up, and I think I do that like kind of like I either smirk or something, or just that, nothing like much. And that happened to me when somebody tricked me, and I waited 3 years actually to, because they were avoiding me, like they were literally living in the same place, and like nowhere to be found. I was even bothering. I was just waiting for the right moment, and I got him back, and I did got him back 3 years later. And
Yeah,
that's definitely like some part, like more a psychopathic trait that comes like a mixture in that antisocial, I guess. And sometimes this and sometimes that. But like sociopathic is more like impulsive, but psychopathic trait gets more planning like.
yeah, yeah, and there's definitely a difference. Lately, they've been, in medical terminology, they've been grouping psychopath and sociopath together, but there is a definite and
Yeah,
distinct difference between the two,
they say that
although certain traits can belong with the other,
well,
and vice versa.
antisocial disorder is actually a mixture of this both sociopathy and psychopathic traits. Just you have, I think, factor one. I will call it, and factor two. If you have more on factor one, which is that will be psychopathy. If you have more on factor two, it will be sociopathy. But definitely you have
Yeah,
both. Like, and I think I'm a factor two, but I'm not a psychopath. I will say sociopath. But but I still can be planning and calculative as well as impulsive.
yeah, I think there's at least a certain degree of narcissistic personality disorder associated with psychopaths, whereas
Definitely.
sociopaths don't get that as much. Well, we can, but not always.
Well, they say that all sociopaths are narcissists, but in a way, like they have a grounded self-image, or like they are selfish, and But Narcissistic personality disorder is something else. It's separate. In my case, it's like I got both, but like separately. So which makes it confusing sometimes because one day you can be in one and next day you can be more symptoms are in another, and like I definitely prefer more ASPD state.
Me personally, because it's such a fundamental thing, and you know, you know as well as I do, we just feel normal. For the most part, we just feel like normal, you and I.
Mm.
I generally let other people tell me what I am. I let other people, from an outside perspective, categorize me, and then I just accept that for what it is, because I, from my own perspective, will never be able to see myself from an outside perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard sometimes to do that do that thing. It's well, it's I don't know. I consider more normal this than like it's. I think that like the question sometimes did you felt different than everything else, and the answer is more like I felt like everybody else is different, right? So, and I'm normal. So there are definitely people who are like who will be like I remember one situation when I was little and I was some in hospital or something, but they said I had to stay because I had some breakdown that was more like a tantrum, because I remember I didn't just cry, I was like well, dramatic cry and everything, and I just in a second I like stopped, and doctor said that's why you have to stay. And my father, who doesn't understand this shit because he's sane, he asked why, like he just control his emotion, and it's that's the problem. Like regular people don't control so fast. Like no way, they process feelings like like takes time to process feelings, but no like that fast control, fast
Yeah,
regulations.
and everybody likes to imagine that we're all similar to a certain extent because we're all humans. But a lot of times with old timers like my father, he just doesn't understand because they were never taught about mental illness or anything like that. He thinks that everybody's just the same. We just got to work on our problems.
I don't consider this a mental illness. I consider this just not buying to the social shit, and being more connected to your nature than people. Then the norm is just follow like sheep. That
Yeah, I personally don't consider it a mental illness either. I just follow terminology so people understand generally.
yeah, it's for me it's like more normal than the others, as I said.
Yeah, like my empath friend, and I'd be willing to bet you feel pretty similar. I feel like she has more of a disorder than me because she's feeling everyone's emotions and it's impacting her
Yeah,
negatively.
yeah, like imagine that, not just feeling yours, but feeling like the bunch of everybody else's shit. Like, why would you need that? It's
Yeah, it's not necessary.
it's not even considered disorder, but it should be like, because that's not normal, right? I mean, I don't know.
I guess a lot of people also want to know whether or not we're dangerous because that's a common misconception. Actually, is that we're dangerous?
We
We are
can be.
not
Well, we
dangerous. We
can be.
can be.
We can be. That's the difference. We can be. It's just
Yeah,
I won't do any harm to you if you don't like go on me first. That's the thing.
exactly. Me too. And it because I have such a good control over my emotions, it usually takes a lot to really upset me. Somebody has to be trying, or
Yeah,
they have to be actively being disrespectful for no good reason.
yeah. It gets a lot, and once they do it, it's just like then it's like one or the another. It's that's the over of the whole thing. Yeah.
And I think it's only a benefit having the capability because people like my friend, the empath, she wouldn't be able to ever do any harm to anyone. Even if she needed to, she'd probably feel bad about it, and then it would probably affect her negatively. Whereas having the
So
capability
she's
and
avoiding it.
not using it is better.
It's yeah. I can't help it but agree with you with whatever you say. It's it's how it is.
It,
I
I
think it's how it
haven't
should be.
unconsensually hurt or done anything negative to anything else for about 8 years now running. It'll be 9 years in February, and unconsensually, of course, is the key word there. And it's just because I think of things logically. I think about the numbers, what benefits and what loses. And if those numbers don't look good, or
Mm-hmm.
something doesn't have to be hurt when it doesn't have to, and it doesn't benefit me as much, I just don't do it because I don't have to, even though I have the urge sometimes.
Yeah, it's those impulsivity. Somebody gave me advice like be in control of your own emotions. Like see if that actually benefits you or it's just your impulse. And one another thing is this person worth my anger or whatever? Is it like it's worth it or not? Like it's actually giving me more people in SPD spectrum give me more advices, good advices than therapists can. You know.
Hmm. Things can get dangerous you when a person lets it go and just does whatever they want, and especially when a person does that and then realizes that they're not getting caught for it or they're not getting in trouble, because then that basically takes away any repercussion that there would be. And so
Mm-hmm.
that can be, not always, but sometimes can make a dangerous situation.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. Um, it gets you a lot to react to things, but well, for me, sometimes if NPD is more there, it's just like I don't like that again mentioning it's NPD is more like expecting from people some sort of attention or some sort of supply, and in SPD more I don't really give a shit more, or I get different drive for supply, more like power and control is the supply, but in NPD it will be more like attention or validation or anything similar. I think control as well, it's a common thing, like in between, but you kind of then care what people uh, say. So I think that's like bullshit. Then I come back and like that's bullshit. That's bullshit. And it's good I can drop that off.
Yeah, and I'd say all of this is descriptions of the blanket statements that that we show no regard for right and wrong. We only see the logical, and that we do
I
not
don't.
consider
Da.
generally the
Sure.
feelings of other people when we make our decisions. We only consider what we should do and what we shouldn't do on logical evidence.
Yeah, and I don't see things as good or bad. I rather say is it smart or something like that.
Exactly. I have a generalized disregard for the rules. If I know I can park in two parking spots sideways and nobody's going to say or do anything to me, I'm just going to do it
Yeah.
because nobody's going to do anything. Nobody's going to say anything. So why wouldn't I do it? I know I can.
Yeah. Sure. That
Same with
understandable.
destruction of property, lying and dishonesty. There is a time and a place where lying is not a bad thing. It is not always a bad thing.
No.
Investigators lie to people to get confessions out of suspects.
Yeah.
For instance.
I think FBI will need our brain pretty much because working for FBI, like imagine that they need our brain to catch a lot of people, right? I will think that way, so I will like I was thinking of it, you know. and
Exactly.
we make a good like either working for like police or some investigations or whatever, or certain we make good, like we can make good leaders, and we are needed in society, to be honest.
And if I'm lying to a job, for instance, and I'm telling them that I have experience in psychological science, if they never check it and I can still do the job, then there was never an issue with lying about it. It was only beneficial to me, beneficial to them to maintain a
Oh,
good employee,
yeah, Chad,
and
did
so
a
I
similar thing.
never got to feel bad about it. And
I did a similar thing with my one of the jobs I did, and nobody actually questioned anything, so I went with it because I had the knowledge, and that's all that's important.
I'd have to say one of the biggest risk factors associated with it is neglect, right? I have cats. I can neglect them, and that's not physical abuse or anything. It's just if
Neglect.
I forget to feed them, or if I'm
Yeah.
not giving them enough love and attention, and it's because I don't, need that same love or attention, and so sometimes we'll go weeks without even giving them any pets or anything. I have to
Uh,
maintain a schedule for that.
well, yeah, I have dogs. I have dog one. Now I have a dog, but that's kind of off a topic that I will mention out of like video. Um, but
Yeah.
it goes like sense of time, and yeah, I have a dog, and I try to rebuild the relationship now because I have tested being violent with it, to be honest. It just, yeah, it gets to that point, but now we rebuild somehow. I try every time coming home, I try to pet it, and just regain that trust and whatever the dog requires.
And that's a really hard one because you can't explain it to them, and so they don't understand. And so
Yeah,
that's really hard. I have the same issue kind of here and there with my cats.
well, and still you kind of have yeah, you have your own conduct code and moral code, which it's not like you don't have it. It's just you have your own, I think.
Yeah, it's not built in. If we're going to follow moral or ethical beliefs, it has to be something that we've deduced is something for the betterment of ourselves and others. And we've got to not always write it down, but follow it and make it ourselves, or adopt rhetorics from other people upon that mindset. The word just escaped me sometimes.
I have something like that. That is like I call soft spots or whatever that I'm like against, like which is like child abuse or something. Um, and that goes like that's my code, like that you don't do that, you know. and
Yeah.
and simply is simply is like that. Some people are like they don't touch animals considering them innocent. I can't say that it's not true, they are innocent, but I have been crossing line with them, so I can't say I'm like with that.
Well, if
Like,
we consider it,
yeah,
everything is innocent. We only act upon our mental illnesses and personal beliefs based upon history and personal experience. We all start the same, approximately the same. And so, because of that, we're all innocent.
yeah,
So you could say that everything is innocent.
yeah. You can kind of get if you could start thinking, you can get very far with it. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's why you just got to write down these moral beliefs and follow them and operate in a way that's logical and beneficial, I suppose.
yeah.
I
That's
think that's most of the touch points of the presentation here we got going. Do you want to add anything?
Just like, well, not that I can remember now, but I think definitely there will be, but that was kind of good, and I think you can actually just like the way you think, because I'm also a thinker, and it's just I love people who think, and who like want to have this like kind of conversations, no debating or something, but conversations more. It's just get very interesting. And
Oh yeah, I I personally love debates, especially theological debates. I've studied many different religions:
oh yeah,
Taoism, Mahayana
same
Buddhism,
same.
Christianity, Judaism, Satanism.
I even covered myself to a Muslim. I was born Orthodox, but I covered myself at 14 just to experiment on it.
I'm very familiar with Muslim beliefs.
But
I'm also familiar with Taoism.
I found out it was very masochistic. I found out it definitely wasn't. No, I don't agree with it.
Yeah, many other corporeal beliefs, I do not actually agree with. I am actually a Gnostic atheist. I do not believe that there is anything out there, and I've got evidence to back it. I've been dead for a total of 12 minutes, not altogether consecutively. I was dead for 6 minutes in a KFC parking lot, and
Mm-hmm.
3 minutes in Tacoma General Hospital, and 3 minutes in Capital Medical Center in Tacoma,
I'd say
and
I'd
and there was
say
nothing.
same. I'd say same, but I picked something like that's not even considered a religion in some way, but alchemy, if that's like I like to. If you have this obsessive compulsive behavior, it's kind of I think typical for even ASPD. That they love to experiment stuff and get obsessions with stuff, and so I'm like finding out that this kind of what I found out about it. It's kind of matching most what it is, and I believe in what it is to be the truth. So it's like hard to explain very if quickly, but it's more like, to be honest, I don't really much believe in anything like God. Definitely not. Like I'm non-religious. That's definite. But if that's like that, if there's higher thing like that, that's definitely gonna be something that like is connected to everybody. But well, like more from a spiritual level. But again, spirituality for me, I just think like it's different side of but same shit as a religion, and
Yeah, I agree with that.
it's like they think they are different, but they are coming from actual. If you think of it, it's the same. Like it's just the way of religion. Just they think they are special because they're like different. No, that's not the thing. It's same thing. Um,
Yeah.
in short, and not just go now around explaining why, because as it told you, I get into experiment a lot of stuff with religions and stuff like that a long time, so it will be just a long topic.
Well, I follow a lot of these old religions all the way back to the roots. So I'm familiar with the Leningrad Codex and also the Codex Sinaiticus, which is the New and Old Testament from uh, their old codex is found. Um, they were written in Hebrew. They were discovered in Cairo, and currently the Leningrad Codex is in the Russian National Library of St. Petersburg, whereas the Codex Sinaiticus, it I believe is of Greek origin, if I'm not mistaken, and
Could be.
all of those come from even older texts. They were actually uh, translated texts from even older sources that we have currently lost and never found.
Hmm.
I think that religion is the oldest form of social manipulation,
No,
and
definitely.
it's really effective.
It is because you have to keep somehow society under control. Well, that's how
Yeah,
they think.
exactly.
Or it will be all mess, right? If
Yeah,
if we go with the anarchy around, but you have to follow some kind of like to adapt to this like to survive. You have to, in my way of thinking, you have to adapt, or because you have to survive. But that's just as far as as like for your own survival.
exactly. And if there's no consequences or anything like that, and how are you supposed to pay consequences other than corporal consequences like hanging or death penalties? There really is nothing like that. But when you put on the line the eternal spirit and afterlife of a person, that is a consequence that will stop people in their tracks. It was much more effective before we had science.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like society is just manipulated, but what happens when we are all born? I just think that like that gets very deep. Like then, what will we think the same, or just like children are different? You see, and before they get to understand and some that they have to follow some certain behavior to be accepted or whatever. They are I love children for that reason because they are more like themselves. And
November 14th.
yeah, oh, it's five.
Yeah,
It's five.
uh, I love these debates. I'm also a fan of science. I've studied a year and a half of organic chemistry. I've studied a lot of cosmology, and I suppose astrology too, to a certain extent. But I'm also familiar with biology. Science is my favorite. When it comes to arithmetic, I've only learned a small amount what is actually necessary in everyday practice.
Mm, yeah.
I I lock up on these things, like you said, obsessively, and I love to do research.
Well, I always did it since I was a teen. I was like obsessive with stuff like dig deep into topics and stuff. Like I was debating as well a lot. And some people call my behavior arrogant, but I call it like true, like direct. So I think
Yeah,
arrogance comes just because they get offended or hurt. That's why I call it arrogant.
medical knowledge too. That's actually how I know, a larger amount of this psychological science stuff. I've read the 8th edition psychological science textbook,
I'm
and I've
currently obsessing with psychology, if you can see a lot.
yeah, I quit with it though. I'm not a fan of psychology, so I stopped after psychological science.
Well, I'm doing this from a lot of angles. Like I'm not just focusing on one thing, but a lot of different approaches, a lot of different different things that like can. I mean, I'm getting bored at this point, but um, it's just like I always come to something different that could keep my entertainment so going. So I think that I'll switch. I don't know. I'm been into philosophy. I don't know what to pick next.
Yeah, well, I don't know your interests and stuff, but
Oh, my interest
um,
that I go like I don't know. It sounds very similar to yours. To be honest, I've been into religions, into philosophy, into science, into psychology, into I studied that everything about it. Like and I go to core when I go with it, but it like fades away, and I go to something else, and just
Yeah,
Yeah,
same here.
I need to
Um,
find new interests.
yeah, I also do a lot of philosophy. I started with the works of Friedrich Nietzsche, and I just
Yeah.
finished reading a lot of the works of Rene Descartes, uh, who is one of my favorites. I am currently getting into um, Voltaire, the philosophical works of Voltaire.
If you have something to recommend, I'll definitely use if there's audio format because my reading is like I'm not very well with it.
I'll
It's
send you something right now.
dyslexia and attention span. Or just I'm not for reading.
Rene Descartes.
René Descartes sounds like something like Spanish origin.
Close. I believe he's actually, yeah, he's either from Spain or he's from France. One of the two. I can't quite remember.
Could be, but I just it's similar origin, like Latin origin or whatever.
Descartes was of the mindset that he should not go off of all of the written works and all of the previous understandings, and that he should start back at the beginning. He thought, well, does my house exist? Well, I don't know. This tobacco I have in my pipe, does it exist? Well, I don't know. I feel it. And then he thought, well, I feel, does that exist? And he said, yes. And then he said, I think, therefore I am. The thoughts that he has in his head, and only his mind is the only thing that he can prove exists. And he started there and went forward.
Yeah, what the fuck is the reality then? And yeah, it kind of gets complicated. Love that actually. Yeah, it's really interesting actually.
As for
Yeah.
Voltaire, the guy I'm currently reading up on, he had a lot of the same mindsets as us. I actually believe he was also a sociopath before the diagnosis ever even
Hmm.
existed.
Then I'm more interested.
You have to wonder whether or not a lot of these philosophers were.
Yeah, yeah, kind of, yeah. I just came up to my mind these most stupid things that people did in the past, like when to prove something, and I was like, one guy stabbed a needle in his eye because he wanted to prove that holes are real. Um, and I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, and I was like, okay. I was like, okay, okay, that's just too much for today. Like too much YouTube for today.
I wonder how that worked for him. I like to think about all the old chemists back before chemistry was chemistry and it was still alchemy. And I like to think about how many of those people took piss and tried to get gold out of it because it was yellow. It turns out there's a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, just there's a lot of shit.
Get off that shelf. Get off that shelf before I come move you.
Your cat.
Yeah.
Now I can move you.
Yeah. It's not an empty threat. I'll go pick him up and move him right off that shelf. I collect a lot of books. I have somewhat of an in-home library, but because of my mental deterioration, I can no longer read like I was able to before, and so it's
Mm.
really frustrating.
No, it can be frustrating, but I can understand that because of my dyslexia, and I can understand how frustrating it can be to read.
Yeah, and also losing all this stuff we just spoke about, all of the knowledge I've gotten, I'm slowly losing it now. I'm
Damn,
not slowly
that would
losing
be
it
too
either. It's
bad
moving quick.
to just lose all the knowledge you like were getting all your life. Damn, that sounds frustrating.
It can be incredibly, yeah, it can be incredibly frustrating at times. And
Well, acceptance is the best key.
think I'm about out of topics to chat with you about.
Yeah. Um, how long we are here? I think it's just like we started at 4, and now, well, for my time, now it's 5. No, and before 4 even. No, it's 5. I started for a while. Oh, let me see.
10 hours ahead, 8,
Uh,
9, 10, 11,
one
12.
1 hour and 1 hour 30 minutes below.
So it'd be almost 6 a.m.
Here is 5 and 10 minutes.
Yeah, that time difference, that's quite a hurdle. But you're not the only one. I have a buddy in New Zealand also who he's a day ahead and 8 hours behind.
I have friends from Australia. I have friends all over the world. Basically, I learned all these time zones in my head. I know I knew you were behind me. I because Australia is ahead, and I'm in the middle of everything. It's nothing special about Europe. We are in the middle of everything.
Yeah, I believe I'm 0800 hours forward in Pacific Standard Time.
I don't get that one. It's just like I get this whatever the clock showed me. I don't even look at the clock on the wall. You know that one. I'm troubles reading it. I'm looking at my devices and they're showing clear time.
In our pinned messages, if you go to the information where you change nicknames, there's a spot that says pinned messages. I pinned a message that shows our time a little better. So if it's midnight here for me, it's 10 a.m. for you.
So the difference is 10 hours.
Yep, you're 10 hours ahead.
Yeah, I thought it was like between 6 and 9, depending on the state, but apparently can be 10.
Yeah, it can be up to 23 hours ahead. And because of that, it can actually be one day ahead of where I'm at. So whereas it's Monday right now, in New Zealand, it is Tuesday.
Well, it can be, but yeah, for me, since I'm in the middle, it is always this kind of like either behind or like ahead of me. So it's never like uh, 23 hours. It's limited to 11, I think, and that's the first as it goes because I'm stated in Europe, so it can be different day if I'm like 8. It's 8 p.m. here, and in Australia will be different day, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a different day for you right now than it is for me. It's Tuesday where you're at, huh?
28, yeah.
Yeah, right now it's Monday the 27th for me.
Yeah, still for you, for me it started with 28, like 5 hours, so yeah.
Well, shucks.
It's nice thing.
Well, I reckon that concludes our chat. Unless you want to chat about anything else for a minute.
I mean, not that really know anything that comes to my mind, but I definitely find it interesting. Um, I would like to chat anytime you're free, actually.
Oh, by all means. Yeah, I could probably chat with you for a long time, especially about philosophy and I guess medical science and science in general.
Yeah, a lot of things that yeah, I mean well, let me now just stop with I was recording and I was like about to edit stuff, but I want to end that for now, so I don't have too much troubles with it later.
Yeah.
Because we finished about the topic.